Okay. All right, it's officially 1 o'clock and we have our attendees. I'm going to call the meeting to order. We have confirmed quorum. From an agenda standpoint, we have 4 action items that we need to hear and take a vote on. We have 2 more consent action items that we need to hear and take a vote on. And we've got 8 informational items. So we will do our best to move briskly through this, but still have a fulsome discussion and hopefully get folks out of here on time or slightly ahead of that to make your flights for those that are on site and to return your Friday back to you for those that are attending remotely. So at this point, I will ask for public comment on items not listed on the agenda.
I think we do have some public comment. I was going to let Joy Davis go first.
Hi, good afternoon, everyone. I'm Joy Davis with Catholic Charities of California, and I'm sharing this comment on behalf of one of our subcontractors, Ana Guzman with Catholic Charities of Stockton. Her agency assists clients with applications and retention services for CalFresh. Each month, they serve an average of 40 households with new applications and 20 families submitting either a SAR 7 or completing redetermination. Based on their tracking, about 25% of households require additional help to re-upload documents, even though they have already submitted them with the initial application and also received a confirmation number. This also happens when clients report changes to their household, like income, housing expenses, or household size. The documents are often requested again during the interview or in a notice of action, and clients call the Catholic Charities Stockton agency for help resending those verifications. Eligibility workers say they can't locate the paperwork, and whatever is happening in the CalSAW system with documents is also creating confusion for workers. Clients send messages to their eligibility workers through Benefits Cal, but the requested information isn't provided, or messages go unanswered, or they're responded to with just a period. This has resulted in several clients actually losing benefits. This happens either during the initial application, after submitting a SAR 7, or even during the redetermination. Other clients choose not to continue with an application due to the overwhelming process. Ana's agency has had to file appeals for cases that were erroneously denied, and clients are often hesitant, and this process creates fear and intimidation in many as soon as they hear words like judge or court. As of January 2025, the agency has filed 6 appeals for cases where documents weren't found by workers, even when clients had confirmation of submission. Ana points out that the Benefits Cal system has many features that, when used correctly, will help create a smoother process for clients as they access benefits and a more efficient process for the eligibility worker to process comprehensive paperwork. Ana and her agency urge this group to prioritize efforts to identify why eligibility workers cannot locate uploaded documents despite having confirmation numbers, and in improving efficiencies and support access to benefits and services. Ana also encourages counties to build stronger partnerships with community-based organizations such as hers and others as part of the broader benefits ecosystem. By working collaboratively, we can improve both technology and business processes and reduce hardship for clients. Finally, Ana recommends further training for county staff on features like the messaging tool so that workers can respond to questions or requests for information more effectively. And she encourages counties to work side by side with CBOs or community-based organizations so that they can, so that the challenges can be addressed early and with minimal impact to clients. Thank you for your time and for the opportunity to share this on Ana's behalf.
Thank you, Joy. Appreciate your public comment. All this is being recorded and the project will follow up on that. Thank you. Any other public comment?
Hi, this is Jennifer from the Advocates Group. I had 2 issues to raise. First, I wanted to thank Joy for raising the concerns from Ana about how customers are being asked to re-upload documents. And just to convey that we hear this from assisters from many other counties, that customers are frequently asked to resubmit documents that were uploaded during the application process. We also hear that workers themselves are struggling to find the documents. It's not clear why these barriers continue to exist. It's been about 4 years since Benefits Cal and the imaging system were launched. But customers are missing benefits. Workers are having to spend time doing rework. The entire process is getting kind of bogged down because of this need to resubmit documents that were already sent. So we're really urging this group to figure out how to resolve these barriers so that access for eligible people is protected and workers can do their job with greater ease. The second issue is that since Benefits Cal was launched, we've been told that counties are responsible for providing tech support to the public for Benefits Cal. Initially, eligibility workers were tasked with being the tech support for customers, but it soon became clear that this was an extremely ineffective expectation. Eventually, CalSAWS developed a tech support desk so that customers can get referred there by the worker to get help from someone when they need it. Today, counties are still being asked to be the Benefits Cal tech support for community-based organizations. Whenever a CBO needs to set up an account or is locked out of their account or experiences any other tech issue, they're told to contact their county. Some counties have provided a point of contact for this, but it's not available on the Benefits Cal website. People have to know where to find it. And there's many counties who've not provided a point of contact. And so the CBOs are sent in circles trying to get support so they can serve their communities. One of our partners has been trying to get their CBO account set up since before last November. Their experience has dragged out because the people they try to reach either don't respond, they don't know what to do, or the number they're told to call doesn't actually connect them to anyone. It doesn't seem like the tech support is the proper role for county staff. CBOs are an integral part of the benefits ecosystem. They are county partners in supporting low-income people to access life-saving services. The current system of asking counties to be the tech support for CBOs is not working. We're requesting a real solution to ensure that there is consistent and responsive access to tech support for community-based organizations serving your shared customers. Thank you.
You're muted.
I can't hear anybody speaking.
Mike, you're still muted.
Sounds like they're having technical difficulties in the room.
This is Grace Gallagher. I would like to make a comment as well. I agree with everything that's been said already. We have a lot of situations in which the beneficiary has to request an administrative hearing because a worker insists that something was not submitted when it was actually submitted in Benefits Cal. And it's only at the administrative hearing review point that the county representative finds the documents that had previously been submitted. And this can happen, 30, 60 days after the notice of action. And in the meantime, the client either has been terminated from benefits or has a reduced amount of benefits to live on. And that should not be happening, period.
Thank you for your public. Okay, can you guys hear us from the project site now?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, good. Heather, are you able to unmute and put a comment, or you can put it in the chat, or was that Heather that just spoke?
That was
Grace, right?
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Apologies, I haven't had a chance to combine these two comments, but I'm speaking on behalf of some people that are having concerns about student data. I've currently been working on legislation and in various avenues in working on that. I've I've noticed that there is an issue with student level data. First, I want to read a comment prepared by the Center for Healthy Communities, which helps in assisting students with CalFresh. The Center for Healthy Communities CalFresh Outreach Resource Hub creates resources and other technical assistance for 149 California campuses to improve statewide student outreach. Campuses and CHC are eager to use campus level data from the CDSS CalFresh student dashboard to strengthen programs and deepen county partnerships. However, these efforts are hindered by current limitations, access to only statewide and county level data. Students selected their campus in the Benefits Cal application, but our understanding is this information is not available in CalSOS or the CDSS dashboard. We would like to understand what technical barriers prevent CalSOS from accessing and sharing campus's specific data. Additionally, what barriers exist to making the campus name question a required field for students who indicate they are attending college, especially in light of legislation requesting this data. And then I want to also read what we prepared before. So we're raising concern that we hope that CalSOS leadership can help us address. As part of our efforts to support student enrollment, we have been working to get reporting that demonstrates campus level data. For more than 2 years, we worked to add fields to Benefits Cal to help us track this information. However, we have not received a clear response about if the fields in Benefits Cal actually connect to any fields in CalSOS. For some reason, it's been very difficult to get a clear answer about the end-to-end process between Benefits Cal and CalSOS on this particular matter, and we're asking the CalSOS leadership for their support in simply understanding if this is a barrier for data collection or not. And if not, can we work together to simply update the selection list for college campuses to be consistent across counties? Thank you so much.
I'm not able to hear any sound.
How about now?
Yes.
Yes.
thank you.
Okay, we're going to go ahead and proceed into the action items, and we have 4 of those we're going to cover, and then we'll go into the consent item. There's 2 of those that'll come after. I'll turn it over to Julia. I don't know who else was going to be presenting. Julia, is it just you on this? Or
Yes.
is that going to be Holly too? Okay.
Oh, on the,
Action
yes,
items.
the two action items, yeah. Well, the resolution, you have to read the
Resolution, first one. Okay, that's
resolution.
me.
You're
That's
on.
Okay.
Like,
All
oh, we
right.
changed. Yeah.
As we've mentioned before in prior meetings, we are losing one of our own, very diligent person in our team, Miss Lynn Bridwell, and we're really sad to lose her. But everybody gets a chance to retire, and I'm glad that she's able to actually join the ranks of the retirees that are out there. It's our loss is her gain, and at home, I'm sure. But we are honoring her with this resolution, and I'd like to read it out. Whereas Lynn Bridwell, Benefits Cal Section Director for the California Statewide Automated Welfare System, will retire after 35 years of, I said 35 years of outstanding and meritorious service to the public, counties of California, and CalSOS. And whereas Lynn began her exceptional career in Siskiyou County Human Services Department in 1980 as an eligibility worker, series 1 through 3. Yeah, she moved her way all the way up.
You're muted again.
Switching it.
know there's an issue.
Okay, we could hear you there.
Okay.
Yeah, we
All
lost
right.
you after the words rank up.
I think I ad-libbed that. Okay, in her continued career, Lynn contracted as a technical trainer for the Center of Human Services UC Davis Extension Program from 2001 through 2007. Many of us have had our staff in those great courses, where she developed and presented county-specific eligibility training for public assistance programs.
You're muted again.
Michael, you muted. Yep.
Double muted. Okay, can you hear me on my laptop? How about that?
Yes.
Yes.
All right, we're gonna go with that. So there may be slight echoing, but we're gonna deal. Okay, in 2007, Lynn forged on with the Solutions West CGI as the implementation support consultant, local interface validation for the California State Child Support Automation System, CSAS, performing validation activities to support the local interface between the county Department of Social Services welfare 4A and family support agency child support welfare child support 4D. And whereas in 2008, as a result of continued diligence, work, and demonstrated ability, Lynn embarked on an impressive 14-year tenure with WCDS in positions of increasing responsibility, from track lead to applications deputy director, charged with managing the coordination, development, and successful release of changes into the CalWIN system, one of the nation's largest automated welfare benefits and eligibility systems of that time. And whereas with her wealth of knowledge and exceptional qualifications, Lynn transitioned from CalWIN to CalSAWS in 2022 to become one of the consortium's first policy design and governance managers responsible for interpretation, approval, and implementation of policy into system changes. And whereas in 2023, she was recognized for her capability, professionalism, and commitment to the counties of California. Lynn was appointed section director of Benefits Cal. And I don't know why it's doing that. An unprecedented role for overseeing California's first single statewide automated online platform for which individuals apply for and manage benefits for various public assistance programs. A role she is triumphantly.
Stop trying.
No, but no, just leave me using this one right now.
Don't turn it on.
Okay. Lynn, I thoroughly apologize. This is happening in the middle of our honoring you.
Right, exactly.
Lynn, you're wonderful. She's been through several systems implementations, I can tell. All right. Whereas Lynn embodied the highest standards of leadership and skillfully navigated her career journey while providing devoted support to her staff and fostering collaboration among stakeholders to fulfill the CalSAWS mission. We are enriched by knowing Lynn and proud to have worked with her during these years of service. Therefore, be it resolved that we, the members of the board, do hereby extend to Lynn Bredwell, Benefits Cal Section Director, our sincere and grateful appreciation for her dedicated service to the public, counties of California, WCDS, CalWIN, and CalSAWS. Congratulations on well-earned retirement. And best wishes for continued success, happiness, and good health in the years to come. Which will be appropriately framed. Thank you so much for enduring that, but you've done so much for the project and really brought a level of consistency to our Benefits Cal efforts, especially around engagement with the public and trying to improve that platform. So you will be missed, but we're really happy for you to head into this this part of your life. Is there anything you want to say?
It has been quite the journey. You put it in black and white. Intimidating.
We can't hear you, Lynn.
Can you hear us on the phone now?
We can now.
Yes, that's
Yeah.
Jen Hoff.
Needs their speaker. You can hear them, but they need to put the speaker louder.
Okay, can you guys hear us now?
Yes.
Your volume back up.
Yes. Jen Hoff just said yes.
Okay. Can somebody on the phone say something so we can make sure we can hear you?
It's a beautiful day out.
The speaker is not up high enough. There's someone's got it turned.
Volume back up.
You can hear it faintly.
Okay.
Okay, one more try. Can
Sound
you
check.
guys acknowledge that you can hear us?
We can hear you.
We have to be able to hear them to take the vote.
Verbally, not just in chat.
Can someone speak and say yes?
Yes.
Yes.
Oh, Laura.
We can sing a song.
Thank you, Jen. I see your chat. We've got tech support working on it.
That's a good sign.
Okay, can somebody say something again so we can test it?
It's
Audio check.
Okay, that's a little bit better. We can hear you a little bit. Now, if we could get the volume turned up in the room, I think we'll be okay.
And
All right.
congratulations to Lynn.
Yes, congratulations to Lynn. All right, we got one action item out of the way. We're gonna have to motor
We need to actually
No, we
take the
got
vote.
before we have we gotta do them on each one. All right. Do we have them? Oh, wait a minute. Do we have questions from our board members and state partners? This could become elongated. Anybody have any questions? Comments? I heard the congratulations. I think that's probably from everyone. Even the ones who we can't quite get the sound to come through for. Any public comment? Okay, I'll make a motion to approve. Do we have a second? Marlo, second.
Everybody's fast.
Call the
All right.
vote quickly.
Kelly? All right, Greg? Bill? Chris?
Yes. This is
All
Bill.
right, there-
Saw Bill's.
okay.
I heard Bill.
James?
Yes.
Veronica?
Yes.
All right, Kristen?
Yes.
All right. All right, we got it.
Okay, that motion passes. So now we're on to the second item. Okay.
So the approval of the contract extension for CWDA. We have our longstanding contract with the California Welfare Directors Association. We're going to be making some changes and having some additional conversations. Therefore, this is just a 6-month extension to give us time to do that in coordination with CWDA. No changes to the contract at this point, just an ask for extending it out an additional 6 months. I don't know.
Just it adds $137,280, which is accounted for in our project budget.
And that's just for the continuation of it as it exists. Okay. Any questions, comments from our board member state partners on this agreement extension? Any public comment? Okay, motion to approve. Thank you, Greg.
Second? Yeah.
I
I
don't.
motion.
You did
Yeah, I
second?
motion.
Oh, he second?
He's first
Okay,
second.
sorry. Didn't get
So we
the-
got a motion and a second. We're gonna call the vote.
Marla?
Yes.
Kelly?
Yes.
Bill?
Yes.
Chris?
Yes.
James?
Yes.
Veronica?
Yes.
Kristen?
Yes.
All right, got two out of the way.
Motion passed. On to the third action item.
So I'm actually going to talk about the next two action items together, and then I'll pass it back to you, Michael. I know we've been talking about the transition efforts each month. So as those plans have been finalized, we now need to update our agreements. We've been going through clarifications of scope with all of our vendors, and we've identified some scope shifts. So that's our first area. We need to shift our application maintenance scope to for contact center and identity access management solutions from our M&E vendor to our infrastructure vendor. This is to support various efficiencies in triaging and reducing risk as we move to a more enable a more streamlined maintenance and operations. The current applications would require significant redesign to support a multi-vendor access and maintenance situation. So that's our first area. Gainwell has actually already assumed responsibility for the core infrastructure in February and would then add the remaining scope starting in June. And then our next area, as you've been hearing us talk about, a phased transition cutover approach with M&E. That means that Deloitte will need to ramp up earlier and Accenture will ramp down earlier than planned. So we're shifting that between Accenture and Deloitte. So Deloitte would assume responsibility for CalHere's design actually later this month, followed by design efforts for releases 2511 and 2601 shortly thereafter. Full handoff would occur with the November release, at which time all the service level agreements would go into effect with Deloitte. Accenture would provide back shadow, what we call back shadow support, which means they would assist with triaging and troubleshooting support through the term of their agreement or through January of 2026. That is subject to approval of an extension that is with our federal sponsors right now for review and approval. And we plan to take the Accenture amendment back here to the board in July. And then our last category of change is in various technical and security upgrades that need to be assigned to the new agreements. They were previously planned to be allocated to the Accenture agreement, but will now be assigned to Gainwell and Deloitte for their respective areas. And then there's some ongoing CDSS and DHCS report support. This is support that is currently handled by Accenture today. It was originally limited term support, but it was extended in our latest budget request. And so we've incorporated that now into the Deloitte agreement. That would not start until February. But we went ahead and included that into this amendment. It involves ad hoc support for various complex data queries, and that's for data they already have access to. So it isn't anything new that they would be accessing there. Then we also added Gainwell will assume recurring infrastructure support for Woodtip. We had already accounted for the M&E support in the Deloitte agreement. So this is a catch up on the Gainwell side. And then one last change is that our Northern California Central Depot was consolidated when we moved to our Gold River project site. So that results in some savings and a reduction within the Gainwell agreement. So those are all kind of interrelated, complementary to each other. And then the next slide provides some details specific to the Deloitte agreement. And just kind of repeats a few of the bullet points that I had noted. There's no overall impact to the total contract value, but it would shift 9.1 million from the M&E change allowance to the base services within our price schedule. And that would retain, approval of the amendment would retain 80.1 million for future change orders and county purchases. These costs are all accounted for in our IAPDU. And then our next slide provides the cost details for the Gainwell agreement. This is the addition of the contact center, identity access management scope, Woodtip, and the security upgrades. Again, no overall total contract value change, but would shift 16.5 million from the change allowance to the base services within the price schedule. That would retain 33.5 million for future change orders. And the costs for the Gainwell components are also accounted for in the IAPDU. So I'll hand it back to Michael, maybe some questions or comments.
Thank you very much for that presentation, Holly. I think it's critical for us to continue to balance our workloads between our vendors appropriately. In the past, we had a single vendor that handled maintenance and also handled infrastructure. We don't have that now. We have a split, and we need to make sure those splits are actually set up in a way that all the vendors can be successful on our behalf, and that we're not stretching them into areas that are not appropriate for them. And I think that some of this is looking to address that. So I'm glad that we're going to do that. And I think we need to continue to keep doing that as we move forward. I've always had a concern around managing between the vendors and not having a place where we don't have accountability somewhere in between. We have not had that, and we've had great vendor relationships. You guys have always stepped up. All of our vendors have. But we also need to, from a contractual side, make that a little bit easier for all of us to understand and to visualize. So I think some of that is actually baked into here on what I was at least briefed on. So I want to open it up to others who might have questions or comments from our board members, state partners, and we'll group these two together since they were presented together. They're not consent items. Well, they'll individually be voted on, but I wanted to vote with them just for expedience. So I'm asking any questions on either of the two or any comments on either of the two from our board members or state partners. One more thing. Okay. Any public comment? Okay, hearing none, we'll go ahead and call. I think we need to take the vote separately on it. So we'll call the vote for the Deloitte amendment. I will make a motion to approve. Thank you, Kelly. Seconded. We'll call the vote.
Marla?
Yes.
Craig?
Yes.
Bill?
Yes.
Bill?
Yes.
Yeah. Sorry, that's scary. Chris?
Yes.
James?
Yes.
Veronica?
Yes.
Kristen?
Yes.
All right.
Okay, so the motion passes on that. We'll move now to the Gainwell amendment. I'll also make a motion to approve. In the room, Chris.
Okay. Marla,
Yes.
Kelly,
Yes.
Greg,
Yes.
Bill,
Yes.
Chris did it, right? Okay. James,
Yes.
Veronica,
Yes.
Kristen.
Yes.
All right.
Okay, motion passes on that as well, and that'll take us to our two consent items, which we can vote on as in a single item. So we're going to go ahead and get a presentation on those.
So the first item is just our minutes from the prior meeting that have been attached to the board packet. I'll call out two action items that were open last month. One was related to additional clarification of regional managers and the PPOG's roles related to the new CER to BCR processes. And there was a request to highlight our transition risks. Both of those are a part of the agenda to come later. The other items are Accenture Change Notice 40. This includes an incremental update to transition scope. As we've been doing this in phases, we're incrementally updating the scope with Accenture on that. And as the logistics and specifics continue to be refined, we'll continue to bring those here. We also had several county purchases, and then there was an administrative update to realign a cost referencing agreement to the price schedules, no impact to the overall cost. The 6 county purchases include 3 LA County purchases, one for San Bernardino, one for Santa Clara, and one for San Mateo. I won't go through each one of them. They are highlighted in the board package as well as the executive summary. The combined total equates to 896, just over 896,000 out of the 35 million change allowance, leaving 10.4 million for future work there. And for transition, that includes an additional 1.3 million of the 10 million transition allowance. That would board approval would leave 4.5 million for future work, and the costs are accounted for in the project budget for transition as well as county funds. Back to you, Michael.
Okay. Any questions, comments from our board members, state partners on these two items? Nothing in the chat. Any public comment? Okay, hearing none. Do we have a motion to approve the slate? Do we have a second?
Second.
Great, both in the room? Kelly, yeah. Or was it Marla?
That was Kelly.
Kelly.
Marla,
Yes.
Bill,
Yes.
Chris, James,
Yes.
Veronica,
Yes.
Kristen,
Yes.
Michael.
Yes.
All right. Yay.
Okay, then that moves us into our informational items. I believe the first one up is our quarterly fiscal report. And Holly.
The first slide is our reminder, organized so we can jump to the dashboard. Jen, on that one. Here's our summary level of costs. We include the through the month of May based on invoices that have been paid or will shortly be paid. Actuals do not include county claims yet. We're still waiting on our April claims to come through there. But we're tracking to a combined total of 394.1 across our various cost allocation plans. This is an update to the allocation since the previous quarter with some shifts that we've got planned for various premise items. We are now down to our last couple of months here. And we do have some more final costs. In fact, as of Wednesday this week, we finalized our last advance request of the state fiscal year. And I can say we'll have a little bit more savings, but we are constrained to each of these cost allocation plans, so cannot shift funds between these categories. The savings are related to personnel costs, some tech infrastructure operations, WAN costs, and then we're seeing actuals lesson plan for some of the premise. Our next slide shows our consortium personnel details where you'll see some of those savings there. And then our next two slides includes the costs associated with our change allowance. These are for M&E. These are our system change requests. And here you see some savings that ties back to wood tip, one of our premise items. The supporting details, in this next slide is our hours view. The supporting details are included in the attachment to your board package. And this is just our chart of key SCR areas, including our core CalSAWs, additional hours that are specific to client correspondence, as well as benefits Cal. I'll highlight one note on this slide is that you'll notice a lower total amount in the month of March. That does relate to a reconciliation of hours for a couple of premise items. We had alternate format, as well as a child health and disability prevention item. So that was a cleanup, catch up on those premise items there. And then in addition, the month of April, it actually includes both April and May services. So that's why you'll see that as a higher month. And then in all three areas, we're going to utilize all of the hours that are available. Next slide, we'll jump into the contract obligations. These are our liquidated damages applicable so far this state fiscal year. There's been no changes since our last report in March. And then I know our quarterly performance review is coming up in the next topic on the agenda. And then our last slide is related to our change notice tracking by contract. We did update this, assuming approvals from the earlier action items. So get the status presented there for you on that. And then one last item before I hand it back to Michael, I did want to call out a risk that we're tracking. We are tracking a budget risk. It's categorized as high, given our state and federal budget climates. It's an environmental risk. It's an ongoing risk. We continue to track. We continue to work with our state partners to be proactive and provide supplemental information when we need to, provide clear justifications. And so we coordinate very closely with OTSI as well as CDSS, DHCS in working to support the sponsor reviews and approvals. So we are anxiously awaiting the May revise, and we'll be monitoring that closely. And we'll continue to keep you posted in future meetings to additional status. With that, I will turn it back to you.
Thank you, Holly. You're always very thorough in your walkthrough. May revise is on all of our minds. It says potential impact across all the counties. So I'm just interested on, are there specific line item risk areas for us in our budget that are tied back to May revise?
It would very much depend on the type of impact that we see, that if there is some sort of reduction that comes out of the May revise or a federal review and approval or reduction there, we would need to take that, you know, if they do a specific line item reduction. Nothing in particular at this point. It would just depend on what.
So we have no indicators that CalSAWS itself as a line item has been targeted for a reduction, but it could be overall allocations and how that's actually spread. Okay. Well, as soon as we know more, we definitely want to have that elevated. Any other questions or comments from our board member state partners on the financial presentation? Yes.
What % of our funding comes from the feds?
Question. Off the top, I cannot tell you. We get different federal funding participation rates for the different programs. So the majority comes from federal sponsors. I mean, we get 75-25 with Medi-Cal, for example.
So you get some enhanced FFP from that. So it's probably higher than like ours is like 35 to somewhere in 35 to 38 range.
In your county? LA?
Yeah, for LA County. So I'm thinking it might be somewhere around that. Maybe higher though, because they do get the FFP.
So have you heard of anything at the federal level or any discussions at the federal level that might target this funding in particular? No. But you're just saying like we have a share of the Medi-Cal state funding, share of Medi-Cal funding, share of SNAP funding. Yeah. So any reductions in those programs could potentially land with this.
We have a very low bar for high in terms of our threshold. So like, I think, what is it, 50, anything over 50 in terms of like when it gets ticked up to high, like our threshold is pretty low, so.
The probability level.
Probability, yeah, once it goes over 50.
Just as a point, maybe you guys can look into, is to look into anywhere where we're getting that enhanced federal participation to see if that specifically was impacted, what kind of impact that might have on us.
Michael, one of the reasons I'm asking is because, you know, at least in my county, and I think in many counties, the boards are pretty active in advocating right now and sending letters and whatnot. And if there's something about CalSAWS that we need to advocate like that for,
Exactly.
you know, we need to know.
And also similarly for CWDA, as their advocacy is for all counties. Yeah, I'm particularly interested in the enhancement because that's something additional that they're doing, that if they didn't want to contribute on the enhanced side, you know, that would drop us down in some instances by 20%. So, okay. All right, thank you. Any other comments or questions from our board members, state partners? Okay, any public comment? Okay, hearing none. Thank you very much, Holly. I really appreciate it. And we'll keep apprised as things materialize through the federal budget process. Okay, that takes us on to the quarterly performance and SLAs report.
Do you want me to go first? All right. Hello, everyone. So let's start with M&E. I said I wouldn't be too loud today. We'll start with M&E. And so from an M&E perspective, since we haven't done this in a quarter, and it might be a little bit longer actually, there's kind of two key areas that we look at in terms of quality metrics. One's around code quality and defects, and the other one is performance against the service level agreement. So let's start with the red, green, yellow chart here. So this is around cost of rework. So if you flash back to all those numbers that Holly just showed us, I know you remember them. There was a slide in there that talked about the monthly hours. So for the past year, continuing all the way through our next couple of releases, we are consistently delivering around 45,000 hours worth of system changes in each baseline release. And so at the last few releases you see here in this chart, our quality remains very level and well below the green threshold. And so this includes both our onshore, offshore, and combined rates here. I know you have to zoom in if you want to see the separation of the lines, but it's very consistent. 2503 is not on here yet. That's because we wait till we get through 2505. And then the next quarterly cycle is when you'll see that release in there. And depending on when that is, it might be 05 as well if 07's deployed. So let's move to the next chart. The other aspect of this is we talk about defects. It's been pretty steady. A question I get consistently now is for, you know, defects that we know of today, depending on when they get logged, we always try to put them in the next baseline release unless it's critical or high. So the good news is right now we have 0 critical or high defects outstanding. This chart reflects the medium and low defects. And we are, for what we know of today, you know, working to get them in 05, 07, and by 09. Obviously, this number changes. You see we get the open and close trend. So we continue to track this closely, and we'll do so as we get closer to our last release, which is 2509. Let's scroll to the next slide. So this is our service levels. So for the last quarter, as you know, Holly also had on one of their slides, there were no misses from a service level perspective. You know, as we go forward in this quarter too, you'll see that a couple of SLAs don't apply. Obviously, they've now shifted over to infra, and Dawn will be reporting on those.
All right, next one. So from the infrastructure perspective, we only have a quarter. So we will, we are just looking at the current quarter. We do not have any misses at this time, although we do have a few of these things that are still under formal review. We did, of course, talk last time about the incident in March and the telecom concerns. I'm not going to go through all of that again, but just a quick update. If you remember during that time, I discussed some items that we were going to do so that we could actually troubleshoot quicker updating some scripting and doing some different things with our load balancer in order to make that troubleshooting lane go faster. I did want to let you know that those things have completed. So from our perspective, those have been implemented. And then the other item was we are continuing to work with our telecom provider. And we have now just recently received a full architectural from the point where we hand off to the point where you receive and vice versa. And we are going through all of that with our telecom communication provider at this time. So we are continuing to pursue a look at best options in this space. So that with that, we can move to the next slide. I will be turning this over to Sarah with Highland in just a second. But I did want to note for you that there are some additional items on this slide. That is the result of some updates to that agreement with Highland. And Sarah will be talking about those. In addition to the items that are here, we have also incorporated into the agreement with the Highland some dedicated resources to increase the support in this area. But with that, Sarah, if you could go ahead and walk through your metrics, including the new ones that are listed here.
Sure thing. Thank you, Dawn. For monthly uptime, we were at 100% for each of the last 3 months, so no downtime over the last 3 months. The page views, database transactions, we've had these at a target for 90% for a while here. You can see that we are averaging over 99% for each of the last 3 months for page views database. Brainware processing. Brainware might be a new term for you, although we've been using it this whole time for imaging. You're probably used to hearing things like OCR, which is optical character recognition. That's what Brainware does. So the Brainware SLA is to process 97% of documents that are 10 megabytes and smaller in 10 minutes or less. We've been tracking this for several months. That's why we have data on here for the last 3 months, even though this went into effect on April 1st, like Dawn just said. So over the last 3 months, we've been averaging over 99% and under 3 minutes. And then that final one there for the technical resource response time, that's a brand new SLA. We are tracking to ensure that Highland has a technical resource engaged in critical incidents and system outages, making sure we have a proper person in place in 30 minutes or less. And this SLA went into effect on April 1st. So that's why we have not applicable for February and March, but there were not any incidents, critical or system outages during the month of April. So we have 100% for April. That's what we have for Highland.
All right, thank you, Sarah. And with that, we'll be turning it over to Mike Henry for benefits.
Michael Green. Benefits.
Yeah. Michael, one of the Michaels, not this Michael, yeah.
So it'll be easier.
I appreciate that we distributed us, to
Yeah, each Michael on each side.
All right, so there are 3 metrics that we'll look at for Benefits Cal, and as you can see on these slides, they show history over a long time because we've been tracking these basically since Benefits Cal went into production. All of these are related to how quickly the transactions return under various circumstances. The first one is those transactions where we know exactly the date it's being retrieved, called bounded, and those are well above the SLA and has been forever. If you go to the next item, that's the unbounded, which is the same thing except in instances where we don't know how much data is being pulled back, for example, a transaction history. Same situation here, those are well above the target. And then if you move to the last item, these are our API transactions. So these are transactions that are going from Benefits Cal to another system such as CalSAWS. And again, those meet the SLA requirement for throughput as they have for many, many months.
Okay, thank you. All right, well, lots of green. I love green on these things. I do have a question for our ClearBest folks is on when we do go back and look at what Dawn was talking about, where we had that challenge in March and they're coming back and finding some things. What is ClearBest's role and how are you guys involved in validating and working with them on those findings?
Dawn would probably say we're side by side, but
a healthy kind of uncomfortable.
Yeah.
A good uncomfortable.
Struggle on that. You go after log data, right, rather than PowerPoint data.
Right.
There are some logs that we were struggling to find, and this architecture diagram that they're providing should help with that. As well as updates we're making to configuration on the retention of those logs, because we want to get down to what it takes to stop this from happening again in the future. There you don't have 100% certain. Yeah. Fair.
Yes, we do believe we know what device in the architecture, with our telecommunications provider was at the heart of it. But we, as Dan indicated, some of us were not necessarily available from the telecommunications provider to actually do the. We did have some snippets that occurred that night from those devices, but we did not have the full logs, and it's one of the things that I'm also working with the telecom provider on to actually get those transmitted to us regularly into a system which we could then review, go back and review. That as well, but I do believe we have the source area, but not the final logs that would prove it.
Okay. Well, and I want to make sure you guys, as our primary vendors, have complete reach on any subcontractors or anybody we're using. And if we need leverage on considering alternatives, we should be looking at that too, because I believe we have to be a very transparent environment to get to resolution, and none of our partners should be a impediment in that. So thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, any other comments or questions from our board member state partners on that presentation?
I have a question.
Yes, Marla.
On slide 22, I like how on slide 22 it identifies where LDs apply or not, and then the rest of these don't do that. But I think that's a helpful sort of indication for us. And then on slide 24, Dawn, for the brainware processing, OCR processing, sounds like the agreement or the SLA is 10 minutes or less, which seems long. Is that a document processing time?
Yeah, this is the OCR. I'll actually punt it over to Sarah to explain further, but it's not just ingestion. This is the actual processing part of it. But Sarah, do you want to elaborate on that question, please?
Yeah, it's the process from when it goes into brainware and then it comes back out and then it goes into the repository. So there are, you all know, there are some very big volume days where thousands and thousands and thousands of documents are going in. So when we're looking at 3 minutes average for a 10 megabyte or smaller, we think that's a pretty good time. And what we're finding out, I believe, is that I don't think it's slowing any end users. They're not waiting necessarily 3 minutes for those documents. I don't think it's hindering anyone's end user. It's going through at a rather quick pace where it's not, we haven't been hearing that it's impacting any end user work. If that changes, let us know and we can look at tuning some of these things.
Okay, I think to Marla's point on that one, our business is continually evolving. You guys know that. The expectations are evolving and we're doing more things in real time. That we may have an SLA around that, but we still want to look at tuning options that actually could make things more readily available, especially for call center workers who might be on the phone with somebody who's uploading something and they want to see it. Yeah, 10 minutes is not going to work. You're not going to, that kind of thing won't necessarily meet the mark. We can partner just to be more focused about what kind of transactions those are, and have you guys take a look at what kind of tuning can improve in that area.
I have a question about, I know folks are often taking pictures now of their documents and uploading them. What's the average size? Do you know what that is?
Yeah. Sarah, do you want to chime in? They're much larger.
Yeah.
Obviously now, low quality.
They are much larger, and sometimes we get cats in the pictures. We get random things in the background. Think about when you're taking a picture of anything on your desktop. We're getting keyboards, we're getting pens, we're getting all kinds of things. And as these phones are getting better, they're making the files much, much, much bigger. So that is why we put in a file constraint of 10 megabytes per document. Now, a document can contain multiple pages. So we're not restricting any of that, but we did want to kind of have some parameters, because if you start throwing in, you know, documents that are hundreds of pages
Yeah, of
and have all
course.
been taken by pictures, that's going to take longer to process. So we did want to have some parameters in there for that. So yeah, we
So-
see it all.
So just a challenge back to us, just from it, you know, in evolving innovation spaces, that that's been around a long time. It's putting the parameters out there and kicking it back when it doesn't fit. Do we have the ability to auto adjust resolutions so that we can actually change the sizes of them? Because we really only need them at certain resolution. We're not talking about doing some kind of picture grade, things. And the phones are going to keep making these files bigger and bigger and bigger for us to not just reject them as being too large, but actually being able to auto adjust them. Is that something that we could have the ability to do, or it's ingested and starts to slow everything down?
Is that a question for me?
I think so.
All of the documents are,
outside too.
yeah, all of the documents are still coming in. We're processing all of them, even if they're larger than 10 megabytes. If they do get really large, I think it's over, oh, I'd have to look, 50 or 500. There's a 5 in it. We have a different manual process so that it doesn't bog things down, because we have had that happen in the past. And we are tracking that. And I think this last month, there were only 3 documents that were that large, but that is something that we are processing, or excuse me, tracking, and all of them get processed no matter what size they are.
Yeah.
Okay. So for me, I just want to put it out for the project that works on the imaging and also on the ingestion, the benefits cal side, that we look at what kinds of things are in tools are available to make these adjustments, like our phones do on the front end. But as you start to receive it, you can probably see the file size and see if you can dial down the resolution on them. Okay. All right. That's just a takeaway. Yes, Marla.
I can answer your.
Oh, I'm sorry.
I can answer your LD question. They all apply for infrastructure. The other one is an old contract.
Okay.
Disagree.
No, that is the correct answer. There's no mark on the page simply because all of them have liquidated damages. But we can add that for the
Just put it at the bottom. LD applies.
We can add that for the next time.
Thanks, Marla. Any other comments, questions on this? Any public comment? Okay, we'll move along to the CER, BCR update.
Yeah. So just a quick update from kind of continuing that thread from January to now, where we had the strategic objectives that were discussed during the January member representative meeting. We had them approved by the board. We're now putting together the process to move these items of business value through our governance process. And so with that, we are maturing the documentation of the CER and moving it to a business case request that'll be focused on things like business value, impact, constraints, how we're going to measure success when this is all said and done, so that we can have more robust conversations about the priorities and how they align to the objectives determined by the board, and how that feeds into our technology roadmap. So we started that process early in the year. And then we now, is the time we're communicating out to our PPOCs and our counties on kind of where we're at and getting their feedback. If there's PPOCs in the room, they have heard my apology tour. All of them, I love our PPOCs, and they are very important to this process. And we had a meeting with them on the 29th of April to talk about the as is versus the to be, and kind of mapping. We had a visual of that during that time. We got a lot of great questions. And so we just went through that log of questions on like, what does that mean? We got about, if I'm not mistaken, almost 60 questions. And I think that we responded, and actually that's going to go back out to the PPOCs. We're going to have some additional conversations training even as early as in the next couple of weeks. And so all of that is in progress. So that's back to the action item on the role of the PPOCs in this process. We're now heavily engaged with them and ironing out that process, getting their feedback on where we need to refine and further define, things. And that is running and right now. We have some changes with that that'll be coming into our handbook, and that will show and demonstrate the new proposed BCR process that will be coming to the board as early as June. Again, that the dependency there is where we get, the progress we make with the PPOCs on how good they feel about, what we've laid out. But the RM, so we talked about the PPOCs, and the RMs are working, customer engagement's working now with the regional managers and the counties, and Henry and Yolanda are the leads that are driving the process and these refinements to the handbook so that we can make sure we're marrying these things and there is a smooth progression and transit to this new process. And so the next steps right now this month, we're doing some training on that document, actually how you fill that out, what that looks like, how that maps the current SCRs to BCR document, that those instructions will be going out, and then additional communication. So some of the conversations is like how the counties, especially particularly the PPOCs want to be communicated to, standing meeting, emails, pick their pleasure. And so that's, we're going to continue to update the board, and we have additional conversations during the PSC meeting as well. So that's where we're at. And now I can turn it back over to you, Michael, for any additional questions.
Okay. Like with every process, I'm encouraging us to always look internally and find out where we can make improvements. This is one where we're still trying to understand where what our options are going forward. All the directors are, and I think it's going to be important for us to keep teasing it out, because I'm very supportive of us. We went through and selected kind of priority areas at the board level, and when we start trying to write up changes for the system, they should be reflective of how do they tie to those priority areas. That may not have been the way we operated in the past, just because we were going through all the conversion and we were pretty much just driving things without a huge rudder. But now we do, and we should be having those kind of things, and they should tie together. But I don't want it to stymie, people wanting to make innovation requests, and so we need to really make sure that the process is still very county, centric, county driven, and it can still achieve the tie back strategically to where the board wants to take us. So I'm looking forward to seeing further dialogue on that and hearing back from our PPOCs, our RMs, our PSC members on what things that because this is an evolving thing, what kinds of things they think could enhance this from a revision, or what changes can make it more successful. So thank you for getting it off the ground, and I'm curious to see where we're at on each stage. I want to open up to other directors and our state partners for any comments or questions on this.
James Curtis has his
James.
Yeah, thank you, Michael, and thank you, Julie. Appreciate it. Real quick, the Q&A document, and we're still in progress there, as well as the new BCR handbook. Just curious when that's going to be finalized, and also when the training is going to be occurring for the BCR.
Yeah, so the Q&A logs is going out today, James. And so I just sent an email, not that all these conversations are important, but I sent an email in the middle of this meeting saying that it was good to go out. We went over it last night. The training itself is going to be probably the third week of this month of May. And so you look out for a message and communication from Henry and Yolanda, who will be driving that and getting that on the calendar. But what's going to also be shown at that time is, what does that look like? Like, how do these clusters of SCRs actually evolve and get put into like a group on a business case? And what does that look like from actual examples? They'll have examples from existing ones to show, so that there's a clear mapping of how these two fit together.
Thank you.
I'm so sorry. Did I answer that question or do you have an additional one?
You did. I'm so sorry. Sorry to interrupt you, Julie. I was just curious, who's going to be invited for that training? Is that going to be our PPOCs and the regional managers? Who's that going to get extended to? Just because I have, great interest in this change and really want to make sure leading into if this is going to be scheduled for next month's JPA, that I have a good understanding of this new process. This is so incredibly important, I think, for all of us to really understand going into next month. So just curious who's going to be extended that training to.
Yeah, and Henry's here. He can correct me if I'm wrong, but we did have the PPOCs as a group, the RCMs, and then we kind of left it open for the counties to say if there's anyone else who's going to be potentially a part of that development of those BCRs. We're not constraining who can come, but at the very least, it's going to be those groups, and then anyone else in the county is free to participate as well.
Thank you so much, Sheila. I appreciate it. Thank you, Michael.
Absolutely. Other questions, comments from our state partners or directors? Yes, Greg.
So within that, do you get a sense of some themes of what the questions were?
Yeah.
What is it that the counties are most still in the dark about or most concerned about?
Yeah, I think yes. And actually a lot of them, when you went through it, it was like, actually, we answered that, so it was like there was a lot of overlap in the questions. The biggest one is what drove the training, right? Was like, okay, we have this backlog. Like, we're not starting from scratch. We know that, right? We agree. But what we said was we actually need to map and kind of make that transition with an example. So that's why we're actually using SCR examples and showing like, here's a group of SCRs. This is what it would look like in a business case. Like, this is how we're grouping those. And so that was really one of the most common questions that we got over and over and over again. It was like, what happens to the backlog? We've done all this, like work, like, how does this align with the objectives too, right? That was the other question, like, how does this fit? And so the RMs have been working to support the counties and already doing that work for the counties. So the RMs are in there like grouping to start having those conversations since they're closer to the objectives to support that conversation so that the counties at least have kind of a general, like, for example, these would go in these objective categories, like Michael said, and in the beginning. So those were kind of two of the more common, questions that we saw repeatedly in that 53 Q&A log. So, and we can share that. Obviously, we're happy to share those responses because we want that to be a living document, but also a place where they can go back to. But we can share it with the directors too, so you can see. Yeah.
I was just gonna actually ask almost a similar question.
Yeah.
Really want to ensure that one of the value and sees or something like the appreciation for the engagement. And two, that we were addressing all the questions.
Yeah.
As much as possible. And just err on the side of what we're communicating.
Yep. Yeah, for sure. Yeah, for sure. Definitely.
Yeah, and my position on it is governance is always a little bit messy, a little sticky. It's not ever liked because you have to make decisions and you have to make priority decisions, but we need to have it. But it has to serve us and it needs to be very responsive. And I think Julie's got some great ideas and we're gonna need to meld that with what we've learned from the process we've had so far to come up with something that's gonna, be some hybrid of the new and also what we traditionally have been accustomed to move the project forward, to make sure the changes we're making to the system are the ones we need. And yeah, there's going to be some that still have to wait a little longer than others, but that's just a fact of life. We do that in our departments all the time. But we need a process by which it's documented. We know what's happening, and we have abilities to reshuffle that if the priorities change for us as a board. So I want to create greater clarity before we're ever voting on this so that each layer of our organization understands this really well right up to us. I don't feel like I understand it well enough yet, but my team is digging in, as are yours. And it'll come before the board when we're starting to get some clarity around it. And I think that it's starting to become a little clearer. It's still not completely clear to me.
Michael, I have some questions.
Yes, Marla.
Thanks. So thanks, Julia, for continuing to bring this to us. I appreciate the opportunity to talk about it. Just sort of one of the questions I had that Michael just alluded to is, I'm wondering if you can just explain to us here, what is the change we're seeing? How did the CR process work, and what is the new PCR project?
Yeah, just kind of high level. Right now, one, CRs aren't defined in terms of there's no requirements, right? It's like you can write one sentence, right, and say, I don't like this, and then it goes through a process and it ends up in one of our committees.
What process?
It's sent straight to the project, right? A CR goes straight from a county, a specific county, into a committee,
Okay.
right?
So it goes from a county to a committee.
Right,
Okay, the
right.
committee chews it over and decides whether or not to do it.
So that's the process now, right? What this process is now, okay, well, we should start at let's look at let's have some parameters and strategic areas that the board, the leadership of the counties has decided are areas of focus. Let's look at the existing ones, because we're not starting from scratch, right? We have this backlog of them, and how do they fit into those areas? At a county level, the counties have their own, but then also at a regional level, they're going to now roll up and have these more collective conversations at a regional level around these business cases.
And how exactly is that going to happen? How are we going to get from the stack of CERs that we already have now to a regional discussion?
So we're going to have, the RMs are going to help support developing those business cases and looking at them with their respective counties. The counties have patterns already. So I can tell you based on the FCRs, what's keeping, San Joaquin up, at night, right? And what, so we know that, right? And so they'll bring those and they'll put those into these groups. Those will now be brought up at a regional level, right? And what we're going to see is there's themes, right? Like every county has its concerns, but at a regional level, because the regions are how they're represented in the governing model, the counties need to now discuss and say, okay, as a region, what are our biggest pain points and our biggest concerns in terms of what we want CalSOS to focus on? All right. Now it goes from the regional level and says, what do we want to present to the PSC in terms of these, these priorities? Those business cases will be selected. They will be under specific objective areas, and those objective areas will not all at once. In a particular PSC meeting, for example, they'll be discussing objective 4, right? So objective 4 is report, data and analytics. I forget client communications. I don't have it in front of me. Each one has a different one. So that in that PSC meeting, they know that the business cases that are the BCRs that are brought to the PSC at that time will be specifically on that objective area, just to keep the conversation focused on that. However, 60 days ahead of that, the PSC members have gotten all those business cases. So this is not the first time that they're going to be looking at those. They will have a 60-day lead time to look at those, socialize them within their regions, say, do you have any questions, comments, concerns, on these? And then those will be brought to the PSC and they'll be discussed and prioritized based on a change matrix. That's this process. And that's as far as I would want to go today, but that's kind of where the process is now.
That's helpful. I appreciate that. So the RMs are going to help each county take their current county request and turn it into a process.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
No,
And
they're
it's like
not.
some template we're going to use.
Yeah. Oh, yes. It's a very good.
Every
Yeah.
one of these is on a template.
Yeah.
Okay. And then all of those business requests, business case requests in a region are going to go to a regional meeting.
Yeah.
And who's invited to the regional meeting?
That would be the PSC members and I would assume the leadership, but I don't think it would definitely be at least the PSC members, but it's going to be, I would imagine, the directors and probably the deputies that want to be in that meeting. We're not restricting that because that's not really like the project's call on who the region wants to,
Okay.
Right, but it'd be good to actually engage to find out what is, being decided in terms of that.
Yes, and
So the PPOCs or whoever a county wants is going to attend that regional meeting, and all counties in the region can come to that meeting.
Yep.
Okay. And then, at that regional meeting, we'll get a set of these business case requests by priority area.
Yeah.
So there'll be like one meeting for the first priority,
Yeah,
another meeting for the
whatever.
second priority.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
And then the regions will select how many.
Right now, we're saying one, right? And so just so that PSC isn't overwhelmed with, let's have this whole list. But again, this is something that, this is the evolution of the process. Like, does that get us what we want? What we know from seeing the SCRs is they're very consistent across. So it's really not, you know, like only one. Well, if we cluster these, once you see how these fit into one business case, you're actually getting more bang for your buck there. And there's a lot of things across regions in terms of what the ask is.
Right.
So,
There might be multiple CERs that go into one BCR.
Oh, there'll probably be, sometimes there's like 20 or 30 that will go into one BCR.
Okay, all right.
Mhm.
So we get this BCR that's a compilation of related CERs
Yep.
because previously every county just put in their CERs with no discussion
Right,
together.
right, exactly.
So this pulls them all together into a single business case, all the ones that are related. And then there'll be multiple BCRs in one of our priority areas.
Yeah.
Okay, and then the PPOCs at the regional level will pick one.
PSC.
The PSC.
Yeah. Yeah.
The PSC.
Right.
Is gonna, well, at the regional level, this is before it gets to the PSC. I think this is a regional meeting before it gets to the PSC. Right?
There's a regional
So the
meeting, but that's the PSC members that are.
Okay,
going-
PSC members,
Yeah.
okay, so the PSC members are how many per region?
Depends on the.
Two, right, for us it'd be
Depends
two,
on the
it's not
region,
one per
yeah.
county.
There's a designated
I think it's the same as our
level.
board seat.
Not necessarily the voting members. I think it's everyone at that level.
Yes, yeah.
Okay, okay, so every county is sending their person.
Yeah.
Every county is represented in the regional meeting.
Yes.
Okay, and so we're talking about a single priority area, we might have multiple BCRs all related to that area, but each of those BCRs probably represents multiple original CERs.
Right.
Okay, so then that regional level is gonna come to consensus on one single business case request to move forward.
To the PSC.
And then the PSC is gonna meet and all of the regions will be bringing forward one business case.
Yeah, so there'll be six.
So there'll be six,
Yeah.
okay, in a priority area. Okay, and then the PSC will pick one.
No, they'll just prioritize. They'll
They'll
vote on all of them.
prioritize.
It's not a like you get voted off the island thing. It's
Yeah, okay,
like,
yeah.
we think this one is, you know, and there's a change matrix.
Yeah, okay.
That will score them. It's not is it important, is it not? It's
Okay.
just it's a prioritization thing. And then that's kind of where this part of the process at least pauses, right?
Okay.
And stops. Yeah.
Okay, so that's helpful. I mean, to me, that's really helpful to go through that really specific.
I'm curious about how they're going to discuss it one at a time per meeting, how they'll actually be able to address all the other ones.
So it'll be there's four priority areas, so it'll be 4 meetings, right?
Yeah.
So one priority area will have all the BCRs related to that
Like
priority
the
area.
4.
There might be 20 BCRs in one priority area, and each region's only gonna move forward one of them.
Right.
So in the end, we'll.
I'm talking about when it gets to PSC
Yeah,
itself, that
PSC.
there's only one being
There's one in
discussed
each
per
region.
There's 6,
right.
yeah. Yeah.
And there'll also be 4 PSC meetings, one for
Yeah.
each
Objective. area.
objective.
Right.
So then, how are the committees involved in this?
So this is pre-committee, right? So this is all the process before. So,
Okay.
and so more to come on that. So we did decide to separate those two conversations. This process doesn't change anything related to the committee. So I want to be clear on that
So
part.
then what gets prioritized by this regional, by the PSC, those priority business case requests will then go to the appropriate committee.
That's after the process.
But that is what will happen. The committees will get a chance to review them.
Yeah, well, yeah, we're trying to separate the two because there's this process that requires a lot of like training and refinement. And then that part is a separate like effort that doesn't affect this, right? This process needs to still happen and it doesn't require any changes to the committees or the committee structure or anything like that. But we put them in cleaner buckets so that we can have conversations just about like, what do you need to be developing these business cases? Because that's a whole separate endeavor. And then we'll talk about the committee piece separately, I think. So,
Okay,
yeah.
so, and I think, this is really helpful. I
Yeah,
feel like.
no,
I'm
you
understanding it better.
articulated it
Yeah,
very well,
I'll get
so.
there. So I think that this process, after there's 4 PSC meetings
Mhm.
related to 4 priority areas, we will have wiped out all the CERs. because they will all have been combined into the BC. And I'm not saying this is bad. I'm just saying what I'm hearing you
We'll
is
have
we'll
a healthy
sort of-
grouping of all the
Yeah.
CERs to the extent. Now, they're reviewing these, and I would tell you there's some outliers. Some
Mhm.
probably don't fall cleanly into
Yeah.
any of those areas, but that's a whole different conversation,
Right.
right? It's like, if it's not accomplishing this,
Yeah.
like, I don't, what happens with those? I don't know.
So if each regional, sorry, Michael, I'm gonna keep going here, because if each regional group only picks one business case request to move forward, then there's a bunch in that region that didn't move forward. Then are those just gone,
No,
or do they
they're
come
still-
back? They can still
No,
be
they're-
moved forward.
So they're still there, right? And that doesn't mean that they don't, like, they're deleted or they go away, but they just haven't been prioritized in this
Okay.
particular, in the roadmap development. There's other paths,
Yeah.
like some of them we talked about. Some of them are county purchases and
Mm-hmm.
might be collective group county purchases. There's a lot of different options, because some may say, hey, region 2, 3, and 4 are like, hey, that's still really, important to us. Maybe it wasn't prioritized by region 6 and, the others, but, so there's other pieces to it, that'll probably branch off, but this is you correctly articulated the process.
Okay.
This is precisely why I said we, may land in June or not land in June, is we need to get some of this stuff teased out to where Marlo's getting more, we're all getting more comfortable with it. I also would like to pose that I would like to see some representation in terms of the regions and when it comes to presenting, like one per region doesn't make sense to me. Not only, I think it should follow like what our regional structure is. If we've got like 3 regional reps and 6, that we should be able to deal with that many items, 3 instead of 1. It doesn't make a lot of sense to have 1 per region to me. Especially with this
The
map.
regions represent.
Well, the volume we have.
Yeah,
I mean, we have
volume.
like 200 and
Right.
something that are already in the queue, so.
And that's why, how we set up the JPA
Yeah.
is that the regions have representation on the JPA that sort of matches their client volume.
Yeah.
I think there's kind of.
Yeah, so everybody has representation, but not,
Right, proportional
like,
representation.
yeah, exactly. That's tied back to the board, I think. That's my recommendation.
Are you,
on this.
so you're saying for the PSC, if there's 3 from a region, they should be able to present 3 different business
Yeah.
cases each.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I'm really looking forward to seeing the as is to be.
Yep.
And I'm really looking forward to see the revised CalSAUS handbook
Yep.
that has this added in there now. I think that's going to be really helpful. Thank you. And I think that you've got down here that there's trainings happen. For me, a training is like, how do you do a process? But I'm understanding here's what it's going to be to educate people what it's going to. Or
Yeah, and
what
how-
the thoughts are, right?
Well,
now.
how to complete that
Yeah.
piece, because that was the question from the PPOC. They're
Oh,
like, how do
the
we?
BCR.
Yeah,
Okay, how to
yeah.
complete the BCR.
Yeah.
And if the BCRs come from potentially multi-county inputs, is that where the region managers are gonna help synthesize that or?
Mhm, Yes.
Yeah, and I want to also open up like between, we don't have to be restricted to our meetings on this to get information from Julia. So as directors want to get to direct follow-up, just because we're falling slightly behind. We can do those direct, and I encourage them to happen actually for all of you so that you guys feel comfortable with it. And I also like to make sure that we're looking at not just the backlog, but then what is it like for new things that are coming in and how does that fit into this process so that we have a really good thing going forward.
So one last thing I want to say, I hope that when we do vote, whether it's in June or whenever it is, what I want to vote on is the handbook.
That is what,
Yeah.
it's a handbook, yeah.
Because that's like the.
Yeah, well, that'll be the
That's the
instrument,
written policy.
but
Yeah.
we need to know what the handbook means.
Exactly.
I don't feel comfortable voting something I don't understand.
Yeah, agree. I
Okay,
totally
good.
agree. Yeah, I totally agree. But I don't want to just vote on a verbal.
No.
presentation.
Okay,
Thank
thanks
you,
for that
Michael. Yep.
clarification. All right, any other comments or questions from our board members or our state partners on that important governance topic? Okay, so we have a fantastic next item, that's Benefits Cal update. So we're gonna move on to that.
I'll just cover real quick. Of the work group going. Now, this is an item, we don't have a meeting scheduled for May quite yet, but I do want to share that we know that it will transition over and Fred Gaines will be picking that up to help with the facilitation of that moving forward. And again, as I've mentioned a couple of times, I expect that work group It's focused, once we get past outstanding policy questions that have been raised via email and the form getting formalized on there, that work group will change up to different types of members to start working on what that design, future design may look like. So I think that work group itself will change into a different type of work group. Now we've gone beyond the policy, got that established and moving forward. So Fred will be able to step in on that piece to help get that changed up. And then that part of the conversation will be, now what will that look like and how does it move forward? So there will be some evolution there with somebody else taking on the helm there too. So it'll all turn out.
But we will miss you at the ROI.
Yeah, you've been a great.
You kind of, segued into that, Lynn, but we hadn't announced it here. That obviously Lynn is leaving. Fred Gaines will be taking over as a new Benefits Cal director. And so we're excited to have him take on this role, as he's already a part of the CalSAWS ecosystem, and looking forward to taking the reins and picking up where Lynn has left off. So.
Thank you, Lynn. Good afternoon, everyone. I will take over from Lynn. And next topic, we would like to provide an update on Benefits Cal is regarding the Get Cal Fresh transition and upcoming support activities. Over the last 2 years, throughout the multiple board meetings, you heard us providing an update on the plan of activities to get ready for the GCF sunset. And the month of April has been an important milestone in that journey since the final 2 items that we had on the roadmap delivered and completed with the April release 2504. So what this means, all the systemic updates we collectively have been working on over the course of last 2 years roughly are complete right now. And as we look forward to the next sort of activities, we'll primarily focus on the outreach and the communications. And for that, CDSS has published an updated letter on April 15th. And that letter details out the features, the activities, timeline, and the related resources, which is available on their CDSS website. And from the Benefits Cal perspective, the team will continue to provide support CDSS for the county readiness, for the CBO readiness as needed, and of course working with the regional managers, counties, as well as our advocate colleagues for as needed for a seamless transition. Next slide, please. Another topic we would like to cover this afternoon is about the usage metrics. And over the last several years since the Benefits Cal go live, we have been publishing reports monthly and quarterly. And starting last year, we started to publish new set of metrics to provide a better perspective on how the portal is being used and overall customer behavior. And currently, we are working on expanded that initial set of metrics that we started last year. And in the next few minutes, Chloe is going to walk us through what these are and what they mean in the big picture going forward. Chloe?
Thanks, Owner. Hello, everybody. So Benefits Cal is also currently working on 3 additional metrics, which were requested last summer. We've got the application page exit rates, renewals, recertifications, and redeterminations, and application completion times and outcomes. So going forward, all 7 of these metrics here that you see, 4 on the left and 3 on the right, will be reported out once per quarter in the usage metrics report, which is available on the public site. If we could go to the next slide, we can dive into those 4 metrics that have already been reported out a bit further. So you can see here there are kind of 4 quadrants, which show the initial 4 usage metrics, which were reported out this past March. These represent basically our baseline metrics. These are our starting point. And as we continue to report out on these metrics over time, we can compare to these baselines. So the application data metrics give us insight into application sources and rates. This helps us to understand stickiness and ultimately any effectiveness of upcoming adoption efforts that we may put into place. The applications started and not submitted showcase the submission rates by program
also giving us information on stickiness over time. We also have the customer feedback via the Always On survey. This one gives us more of a holistic insight into the customer experience, also helps us to understand customer satisfaction and pinpoints opportunities for future enhancements. And then lastly, the help desk ticket resolution gives us insight into employee workload, customer experience, and customers' ability to self-serve. And if we go to the next slide, we can look forward to our additional metrics coming up. So with application page exit rates, we are going to be looking at what particular points within the application process people are dropping off at. What are those kind of sticking points? We are also going to be looking at application completion times. I want to note that Benefits Cal does not have access to the application outcomes, so we're not tracking the actual outcomes of the applications, but we can look at the completion times and also compare those to other industry standards. We will be breaking these down by population demographics and program type. I also want to say that these will only be at the Benefits Cal level, not at the county level. There are other county metrics for those details. And then the last one here on the right, similar to the application data metrics in the previous slide, we are looking at those same measures, but this time instead of for applications, for renewals, recertifications, and redetermination, also including things like case linking trends and Benefits Cal drop-offs. We really appreciate the feedback that we've been receiving from stakeholders, CWDA, consortium, counties, advocates. This has been a group effort in establishing and tracking these metrics. We are really happy to have these baselines, and we look forward to getting more robust data as time goes on, and we will be sharing these out, like I said, once per quarter. So I can pass it back to Michael if there are any questions or comments.
All right, thank you, Chloe. Any comments, questions from our board members or state partners on that presentation? Somebody might be on mic accidentally. Any public comment?
Hi, Michael. This is Jen from the Advocates Group.
Hi, Jen.
I just wanted to express our gratitude for the development of these metrics. It's been a long time coming, and we're really excited to use them to inform the decisions that we make about what to prioritize for improving access through Benefits Cal, so we can make some data, informed decisions, and look forward to seeing how we can continue to demonstrate improvement through these metrics as well. So thank you again to the team for getting this together.
Thank you. Appreciate the public comment, and the movement more toward data-driven decision-making is an important one, especially in this space. So I do thank the project for continuing this, because this is just the beginning of what we can do. Any other comments or questions from our board member state partners for the public? Okay, hearing none and running behind, we will move on to the policy and release update.
I can keep it pretty short today, actually. So hopefully I'll help you catch up just a little bit. So a couple things that we have coming down the pipe on the schedule, as everyone is well aware, it is coming live this month. Thank you to all the counties for helping out with the design and for the county validation and everything that's gone into that. It's been a tremendous effort across all the teams, the vendor teams, the consortium team, and the counties pulling this together. And we're very happy with what's going to be implemented later this month. So that's it on this slide. On this one is just talking about some of the resources that are available for folks to be able to access. And so there's some different training materials, other reference materials, and some demos that we've done, as well as the county readiness checklist that counties have been working through. So we are ready to go with SCADL. On the next slide, this just talks a little bit about our upcoming releases. Another significant effort is the DHCS alternate formats is coming live in May, and we will be moving forward with that. And we also, across this PowerPoint slide, we have some placeholders for different efforts that are coming up with regard to COLAs and that sort of thing, and anticipated budgetary items that are coming through. And then finally, on our last slide, this just is our normal slide that talks about where we're at in the process for 2505, and just has the dates on there for various items. And we are looking forward to having a successful release in May. We are very much almost done with our testing. We are way ahead of schedule this time, so we're happy with where that's at and looking forward to implementing in a couple weeks. So there you go, Mike. Hopefully I caught you up a little bit.
I think I learned a new term. We're very much almost done.
And I
know. My slide has just a little tiny bit of like orange still in it. So I was like, we're almost done, but we're not almost, we're just almost there.
My next board meeting.
Like
I'm already on the county board. That was great. I love it. For hitting all the highlights in the program area.
Sure.
Any comments or questions from our board member state partners on the policy update?
Like, I just want to say it's such a big accomplishment to go from widget to scale.
I know.
It's very exciting. It's going to be great for our customers and for our workers. So.
Yeah.
And thank you to all the counties that have
flexible
been
solution.
participating in the training or the testing. That's been, I think, very helpful. So for sure.
Yeah. And Brandon wasn't doing a dance in the jig over there for OTSI, but I think he's happy about this too. That's right.
Yeah,
He's learned to wait. Yeah. All right. Well, this has been a good partnership, and I think putting something where it makes the most sense, and it'll be good going forward for the future. Any public comment? Okay, then we'll shift right into transition update. We're moving along now, guys.
From the infrastructure perspective, I guess we are getting very close to being very much almost done, if I guess.
Let's catch it on.
So imaging, contact center, and identity access management, again, are the ones that we're continuing to work on. In all cases, as we've been talking about before, and as Holly mentioned in the earlier presentation, we are actually already handling the infrastructure components. So this is the remaining components of those items. And as you heard, the Highlands agreement has been updated as a part of this imaging transition. So imaging, the remaining components coming to us on June 1st. The contact center, the two components underneath there. So the contact center itself, with not including the call summarization for Fresno, is coming over on July 11th, and then call summarization will be transitioning to us at the end of July. And the identity access management solution, you know it as ForgeRock, their new name is Ping Identity, of course, and that's transitioning to us on June 2nd. So very close to almost done. And with that, to Deloitte for your transition.
Sure, sounds good. Over 3 months, if believe it or not, and we've made some great progress and strides. You'll see in a few slides here, we have a dashboard that tracks all of our transition and activities at a fairly granular level of detail, and we'll show you a snapshot of what that looks like here. But that's been used weekly to be able to demonstrate how we're tracking. Looking at some of the accomplishments that are helping us really gain momentum here, setting up this sandbox in order for us to be able to get in, dig into the code, perform some testing. That allows us to be way more prepared when we go to our KT sessions, when we go to our job shadowing sessions with the Accenture team, to be able to ask more pointed questions. It also allows us to get more prepared for some of the upcoming SCR releases as well. We're just about a month into taking over the OCAT application. So we've transitioned that successfully over from the Gainwell team. Many thanks to them for while we got ramped up in our transition. And I believe next week we're planning on having our final review discussion on that one. Our team's also continuing to work on policy analysis, also known as SIRFA, where we're doing initial ROMs for some of the policy changes that are coming through. And we've also we're currently shadowing the Accenture team on the 25.09 release. We're beginning some pre-design activities for 25.11. I think the final scope of the SCRs is pretty close to being finalized. And then we're also working on some design activities for the the CalHERS release, the 2602. Our security team is well underway in getting prepared, laying some groundwork foundations for the SSP, and now mapping the CalCELS application and our responsibilities to the 5 specific areas of controls. We go on the next slide here. Looking forward, we're continuing to, as I said, we're finalizing that scope for 25.11. Very anxious to get underway and actually doing some of the design work there. Our teams are collaborating with our Deloitte counterparts in the CalHERS application for that release 26.02. And our teams are also collaborating with the other vendor teams on putting together kind of the understandings and the frameworks for moving forward with an analytics platform that can help us, as the application progresses. Next slide, we're going to show walkthrough where we are on their timeline. I just covered where we are as far as the CalCELS releases. And looking at transition, as mentioned, group 1 was OCAT. Final review will be occurring next week. We're currently in the midst of knowledge transfer, job shadowing, even starting some reverse shadowing for the remaining 3 groups here. But all in all, everything is progressing per plan. On the next slide here, we're showing a snapshot of our dashboard that I talked about. And if you take a look at this actually shows kind of our plan progression, where we're showing our mapping of how much we've planned to do at this time. And if you look at some of these graphs here, we're nearly 3/4 of the way complete with knowledge transfer, trending very close, a little bit ahead of plan. Job shadowing, we're just about, a little 5% below the halfway point there. Again, making tremendous strides. And then reverse shadowing, that is also now underway, and we are slightly ahead of plan. I believe in the last JPA session, there was a question about what are some of the risks and challenges we're facing. Even though we are working at or slightly ahead of plan, it doesn't mean there's not some challenges that we've been working internally with Consortium, Deloitte, Gainwell, Accenture, ClearVest teams in order to be able to manage and mitigate these risks. I'll highlight 2 of these that we're currently tracking and working through today. Number 1, and this one was definitely a lesson learned from the Gainwell transition, which was around providing timely access to tools and environments in order to be able to progress on our transition and activities. And then ultimately, once you take over, if you don't have access to production, it is hard to manage and maintain an application there. So we've been very well coordinated. We've been working together, demonstrating this in some lower environments. Getting that sandbox and access in place there allowed us to kind of flex our muscles in an initial stance, and then we'll be working through additional lower environments as we progress through our transition and activities. The next one here, which is about limited availability of the Accenture staff may impact the timeline. Here we're obviously up the constraint of the Accenture team has a day job to do, right? We just can't come in and take all their time to help us learn the application. So with tight coordination with the Accenture team, we meet on an almost daily basis where we coordinate schedules, we identify specific topics, we're working through availabilities. As things pop up ad hoc, we're able to be agile and shift things around. And happy to report that, to date, there's probably been no reschedule or any issue we haven't been able to overcome together. And very well pleased with how that progress is happening. Lisa, I don't know if you have anything to add there.
No, I think that the key here is really that early planning of these things from the KT. There's never a dull moment here, right? We talk about, I can't do almost nearly, it's like 10 items. The 2505, but we're also building out 50 for 2507, 256 is in system test. So I appreciate that, we've collaborated early, and that constant communication helps us pivot. You've heard this for years, production is priority, you are the priorities, making sure the system is up and working and involved. So that is at the forefront of our mind, and the planning, we've been very, but able to adapt as needed, and it hasn't been that often, but just really coming up with a plan and working the plan. It's been key.
And Lisa, appreciate your team's collaboration there. It's been great. Thank you. And that's it. I'll turn it back over unless we have any questions.
Thank you. And I'm glad to hear Lisa say that is that production is priority. So we're so aligned, all you guys. So that's always going to be the case. So thank you. Any comments or questions from our board members, state partners?
On slide 44, there's mention of an analytics platform. Just want to note that I'll look forward to hearing more about that.
Yeah, all of us. Analytics. All right, any public comment? All right, great. We're going to go ahead and move on, and then that brings us up to the procurement updates. Mr. Hartman is always right on the money and helping us shave some time if needed.
Yes.
Yes, indeed. Thanks, Michael. This is the QA procurement timeframe. Everything's on schedule. We're going to release the RFP August 11th with a contract start date of December 1st, 2026. We also have started on the legal procurement, and we have an appeal on the benefits cal procurement. That's it, Michael. Back to you.
All right, Tom, always hitting the marks. Thank you very much. Any comments or questions from our board member state partners from Tom on the procurements that we have active? Any public comment? Okay, hearing none, we're getting down to the wire. Going to talk about the CalSauce conference next. Hope all you guys are
I know. Well,
registered.
yeah, hopefully, yeah, we have what,
Selling
270
out.
Amendment 275. We're at 275 registered, and so we have a max of 300. So if you haven't registered,
There's still room.
there's still room.
Not in the hotel, but in the conference.
Yeah, exactly. But no hotel spaces, so you'd either have to go under just a standard rate at the hotel or find another
But it's
hotel.
San Diego. There's a lot of hotels.
Yeah, yeah, I'm sure you're not struggling to find a place in San Diego. We're looking forward to that. And I think Jen, do you have anything else to add on the conference that I'm forgetting?
I don't think so. I think I would just reiterate, if any of your staff are part of the presentations or the panels, make sure that they've got their hotel stuff straightened out and that they've registered. And I think it's gonna be good.
Right.
Okay.
Be there.
All right. Any comments on our board members, state partners on the conference? Any public comment? Okay, and then one last shot at public comment, because just in case I missed a public comment somewhere, opportunity, I want to throw it out here in case you guys had something you wanted to say on a topic that I didn't give you the chance to on the agenda. Okay. All right. Thank you. Next meeting is the conference. So instead of being here, we'll be in San Diego. So Sacramento's cool though, you know. But
Not for long.
just in case you guys didn't write those dates down, it's June 26th and 27th. If you haven't registered, please do. We have a good agenda building for you, and we'll be able to enjoy each other's company. We're also going to have a business meeting on Friday, so we will be taking care of our normal board member activities. If you don't attend in person, we will still have you won't be able to participate.
It's in person only, and it does require quorum of the 58 member representative, 60 member representative. So we do need quorum. Right now, we do have quorum, but it's close, so please don't cancel. And we will have like a 10 or 15 minute PSC meeting as well. They'll both be Friday morning.
So get your director friends to sign up, and we'll see you guys down in San Diego next month. Lastly, just apologies about the sound. We will work on that. Somehow there's a light bulb joke somewhere in there, but we will strive to do better as we move forward. So thanks you guys for getting us back on track, and hopefully you guys enjoy the rest of your Friday. Meeting adjourned.
Thank you.